Good afternoon, fellow mindless, soulless, no life having gawkers. Today I would like to recount a story that is making the rounds as it were on social media. It's about a homeless couple, shall we say, going at it in the back of a moving Australian bus. One fellow passenger was quite irate about the discovery of this dirty deed done dirt cheap by two very dirty degenerates. Let's have a look.
Listen, brother, you don't fuck on the bus, mate. I don't care if you're fucking homeless, don't fuck on the bus, cunt. I don't care if you've got autism, it doesn't mean fuck on the bus. Get the fuck off and go fuck in the park or something, you fucking chat. Have some fucking respect for yourselves, you fucking chatty.
Now that is what I call entertainment. While we are on the subject of sex in weird places, I would ask the 26% of the audience that has actually had sex of any sort to leave in the comments section the most exotic and unforeseen locales that have been venue to such wanton activity. In the meantime, here are the lewdest stories and anecdotes from the darkest corner of the internet that I could scrounge up. In the back of a movie theater showing Wall-E. The place itself wasn't weird, but a girl I was seeing asked me over during the post-funeral gathering of her grandmother. She took me upstairs and we ended up having sex a little too loudly. The walk of shame back down the stairs and out the front door afterwards was mortifying. On top of a shed. Not in it, but on top of it. Inside a boulder was different. Not the worst place. Worst place was front seat of a Chevy Cavalier. Pizza shop. Ordered the pie and it came after we did. A cornfield. An abandoned, mostly collapsed mining cabin on the Grand Canyon's Horseshoe Mesa. Parking lot of an IHOP, Denny's, and a Cinemark. Hot tub. Would not recommend. Hotel pool at 1 a.m. wasn't any better. Chlorinated water in vagina isn't appealing apparently. So, the strangest place has to be at church, specifically an office in the compound. It was with another member. I was in the choir, and he was a department leader. It was really hot. Honestly, I felt quite guilty about doing it in church, and I know that if these were biblical times, I would have been roasted. But having to think about God possibly striking us down mid-stroke really got the adrenaline pumping. I typically have sex indoors, the couch, the bed or somewhere a bit more conventional, so the strangest place has to be the side of the road, with my bare ass facing the expressway. I met a babe when I went clubbing and we had instant chemistry. We eventually walked out for air and before I knew it, we were doing it against a fence. A few cars passed by, but we didn't care. The danger of getting caught made the sex so much wilder. The fear we felt whenever we heard footsteps or saw a car whiz by just added to the exhilarating experience. I usually have sex in a bed or on a couch, but the strangest places I've done it are in an estate swimming pool and a law firm. Both experiences were with the same guy, a lawyer I was sleeping with at the time. One evening, we went to his estate's pool together, and while we were swimming, we started making out. Then sex happened. It was cold and painful. The chlorine was not kind to my vagina at all. Another time, I went by his office to say hi. Next thing I knew, I was getting fucked, doggy style, on the floor of his office. My knees hurt, but it was legitimately fantastic. I live alone, so I tend to have sex at my house a lot. The strangest place I've had sex so far has to be on a plane. It was back in 2011, and I was returning to school after a short Easter break. At the airport, I saw this girl that I knew had been eyeing me in school the previous semester, and we ended up waiting for our flight together. There were about 20 people on the plane, so we got to sit wherever we liked. We sat together at the very last row. While we were making conversation, she rubbed my thigh and I immediately got hard. She pointed it out, looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Where do we go from here?" I said I was down for anything, and she immediately pulled out my dick and started sucking it. I think a flight attendant noticed, but she didn't say shit. We later tried having sex in the toilet, but it was very uncomfortable. I usually have sex at my place, the other person's place, or a hotel. So far, the strangest place for me has been in the room next to my parents, especially since they were both wide awake. They let my boyfriend stay over, but we weren't allowed to sleep in the same room. I ended up sneaking into his room for a quickie, and I don't even like quickies. I just hate rules. The thrill also made it a lot of fun. I was studying abroad in Dublin, at Trinity College in the city centre. After returning home from the pub one night with the guy the first was seeing, we didn't feel like going to our separate rooms to be our roommates. So rather than spend the night sexting each other and masturbating under a blanket, we decided to take measures into our own hands. It was after 2 a.m. and the campus was quiet, so we found a shadowy corner with some bushes and he lifted me up against the centuries-old stone facade and we just went at it. I had just recently moved to New Orleans, just in time for Mardi Gras. The week before, I decided to hit the bars on Frenchmen Street, because everyone had always told me it was cooler than Bourbon Street. I was at one of the bars swiping on Tinder and matched with a woman, who coincidentally was at the bar next door. We decided to meet up then and there. She was a NOLA native. Long story short, she knew people working on one of the floats for Mardi Gras and knew how to get into where it was being held. She asked me if I wanted to go see it. Who would say, thanks but no? So obviously I went. It was being stored in a very dark warehouse. There was a highly sexual charge to the atmosphere, being with this stranger in a place we weren't supposed to be. So we started kissing. And before we knew it, skirt was up, pants were down and were banging on a float in the dark. One weekend my boyfriend and I were visiting a friend of mine at Skidmore College in upstate New York. We were newly into the relationship and in that phase where if you don't have sex 17 times a day then you're wildly cranky. But out of courtesy to my friend, whose room we were sleeping in on a mattress on the floor, we didn't want to have sex there. Instead, we would just steal down to the parking lot where my car was parked and we'd have sex in the car. But then even that got to be difficult. Having sex up against the side of the car seemed like the best option. Until the alarm went off and we had to pull up our pants and run before security showed up. I met a guy on a Tinder date at a rooftop bar in Brooklyn. The date was going well and the view was nice, except we couldn't really see much of the Manhattan skyline because it was so crowded. He suggested we find a less crowded spot. Wandering around the streets of Greenpoint, Brooklyn, we noticed we had entered a section of town that was packed with warehouses. So we started trying doors to see if any of them were unlocked. One was. We opened it, climbed the interior fire ladder and pushed the roof hatch open to get to the rooftop. Picture perfect view, and no one around. We started kissing with Manhattan as the backdrop. I asked him if he had a condom. He said, "I have two. It was on."